Whereas Jamil is Kalim's personal servant, attendant, etc., Jamil's parents are house servants, menial servants, etc., for Kalim's family. This is a point of various, complex issues for Jamil, who says that his first memory as a child was seeing his family bow to Kalim and Kalim's parents. He says he couldn't stand the sight of it, and he learned that as Kalim's parents are more important than his, it meant that Kalim is more important than him, and he has to keep himself beneath Kalim, pretending that he is incapable. Jamil has been Kalim's servant since he himself was still a young boy, and we occasionally see Kalim giving Jamil orders that he cannot refuse due to his station, such as during Bean Fest, when Kalim asks Jamil to prepare lunch for him and other students. While dialogue was rewritten on En to refer to himself as an employee and to Kalim as his boss, rather than himself as the servant and Kalim as his master, Jamil struggling with being given an order that he is forced to follow remains. He explains to Trey that he had no choice and is helping against his will. In the Firelit Sky event we get a small example of Jamil's life as a child servant to Kalim, when Kalim explains how he would hunt Jamil down on his breaks while working shifts at Kalim's house via security cameras. Kalim says, "I always wished I could play with you during your breaks, so I just ask someone from security to help." Jamil responds, "Don't abuse your privileges like that," and Trey observes, "Jamil can't catch a break even on his breaks." When Kader comments on Jamil being ready for anything, Kalim explains that they used to play around the fountain often as children. Jamil follows with, "I'd bring a change of clothes and towels to dry you off," so it is possible that it was the two of them playing together in Kalim's memory, while in Jamil's it was Kalim playing while Jamil waited on him. As a child servant, Jamil once tried to make moussaka at Kalim's request when he was still in elementary school. Jamil says, "My parents and the other servants scolded me for hours about how children shouldn't use fire on their own," to Kalim's surprise. Kalim apologizes for putting child Jamil through such a trial, and then immediately asks him to make the dish again. When Trey asks Jamil for fun memories about Kalim's home, Jamil relates a story about a time he used Kalim's kitchen to make lunch for himself and the other servants, because his sister stole the lunch he had made for himself at home. Jamil says that word of his cooking abilities reached Kalim's parents, who then insisted he make lunch for the whole family. Kalim, canonically, has between 30 and 40 siblings. They loved Jamil's cooking, and now expect him to cater a family lunch several times a year. Kalim says that he started inviting lots of different people over to try Jamil's cooking. Kalim explains that Jamil went to school, but he was tutored at home, and whenever he cried about not understanding a question in his homework, Jamil would always show him how to solve it. Jamil learned how to use magic before Kalim. Kalim says that he would try to imitate Jamil every day. Explained in more detail in another video, in the English language adaptation Jamil refuses to stand up against Kalim because he fears a lecture from his parents and out of respect for his family's history. In his original dialogue, however, he explains that Kalim's father is essentially holding his family hostage to force his obedience, saying, "If I did something like that and Kalim's father found out, the Viper family would suffer for it. I'm not going to put my whole family on the street because of my selfishness, and there would be consequences for my entire family if Kalim were exposed to any danger." When Jamil is forced into Overblot, he has a line saying that he no longer cares about himself or his family, and he is going to be free. His and his family's safety being the price for his freedom from Kalim. After Jamil's Overblot, Kalim says that he wants them to be friends. Jamil refuses, saying, "Who in their right mind would ever voluntarily be your friend?" Kalim insisting that they're friends and Jamil following with, "No, we're really not, and, I keep telling you, we are not friends," is a running theme. In a voice line, Kalim says that they are basically brothers. Kalim believing that they are friends does not stop him from assigning tasks to Jamil, as their roles dictate, asking Jamil to act as a tour guide for the students that Kalim invites to their home, ordering him to have renovations made to Scarabia dorm, and having him prepare snacks for him in Book 5. Despite saying in Book 4 that they are to be equals from then on, in Book 5 Kalim also volunteers Jamil to teach Ace, Deuce, Grim and the prefect how to sing and dance. When Jamil calls him out on making commitments on his behalf, Kalim responds, "What's the harm in that?" During Beanfest we learn that, amongst Jamil's various tasks, he also serves Kalim's food to him. Kalim says that Jamil has been making his meals ever since he started living at Scarabia, but Jamil says that he is not Kalim's personal chef. We also see Jamil go to Mastro Lounge to fetch drinks for Kalim, and Riddle reacts in surprise to Kalim telling him that Jamil is the one who keeps Scarabia running. Kalim explains, "It's all about teamwork." It is common for Kalim to invite people to share Jamil's meals for him. We see him invite Idia, Kader and Rook to share a meal that Jamil has ostensibly prepared for Kalim alone, saying, "He always makes food for me anyway, so adding 1 or 2 more people to the mix won't make that much of a difference." After exploding the dorm kitchen in his failed attempts to perform an alchemy assignment, Kalim tells Jamil to prioritize fixing the kitchen over his homework, as he has planned a party for the afternoon that he hadn't told Jamil about. Jamil asks, "And the hosting? The cooking? Who was going to be in charge of that?" And Kalim responds, "Why, you, of course. You can just make extra of whatever you're whipping up for me anyway." Jamil asks how he can make such a demand after destroying the kitchen and having a different party just the night before, and Kalim says, "Well, yeah. That's what the weekend is for, Jamil." Jamil loses his patience and demands that Kalim cancel the party. At first, Kalim does as he is bade, and it is revealed that Riddle and Azul had never actually intended to participate in the first place. Silver is asleep, but Ruggy refuses to let the opportunity for free food go to waste. Kalim tries to call for Jamil's help before remembering that he is supposed to be canceling the party, and Ruggy arranges for them to borrow the kitchen in the school cafeteria. At the end of the vignette it is revealed that Kalim wanted to host the party for Jamil to give him a chance to socialize with other second-year students. Despite this, however, he immediately asks Jamil to go into the kitchen to cook for him rather than attend the party that is being held for him. There is a general rule that Kalim only eats food that Jamil has personally prepared for him due to the constant risk of someone trying to poison the heir to the Asim family. Vil questions his baggage in Book 5 and Jamil explains, "It's a set of potions and medicinal herbs, so that I can formulate antidotes in the event of an emergency." They get around this rule in a vignette where Kalim eats both his own lunch and Jamil's lunch that Jamil had prepared for the day before, forcing them to eat at the school cafeteria. Jamil says there is no need to check for poison because the school offers a buffet. Afterwards, Kalim offers to eat in the cafeteria more often, but, after an awkward interaction with Leona, Jamil insists that he would prefer to make his lunches, so Kalim will need to control his late-night snacking. Kalim refuses to eat curry after an incident where Jamil poison-tested some that was intended for him and fell ill, being bedridden for days on end. Kalim says that Jamil wasn't bothered by it, and he still loves it to this day. Despite being poisoned on Kalim's behalf once already, Jamil still seems to be Kalim's poison tester, adding, "dying in place of Kalim," to his list of duties. Jamil says that he is quite familiar with potions and poisons and that, thanks to his spending 3 years drilling the procedures into him, even Kalim can brew simple antidotes to perfection. Kalim says he always carries stomach-soothing potion for emergencies that Jamil has brewed for him. Jamil apologizing to other people on Kalim's behalf is not unusual, such as when Kalim makes a rude comment to Riddle, when he runs physically into Malleus, and when a vendor at a marketplace in their hometown complains about a time when Child Kalim pretended to ride one of the non-flying carpets he had for sale. It is also common for Jamil to refer to his task of waiting on Kalim as babysitting. In the vignette where Kalim explodes Scarabia's kitchen, Jamil handles it by saying he will call someone to repair it in the morning, and that he will show Kalim how to do his homework. Kalim going to Jamil for tutoring is a common theme. He interrupts Jamil's project with Ace to ask for help, and then Jamil is left to clean up the mess that Ace gets into in his absence. During Halloween, Kalim presents a speech on environmental awareness, only to reveal that the idea and the lecture had been prepared for him by Jamil. In another vignette we see Jamil missing out on his own club activities in order to do Kalim's homework, saying that he can do the workbook section on Kalim's behalf, but without the experiment that Kalim has failed to do, he cannot write the essay. Not able to let Kalim fail, Jamil gets Riddle's alchemy notebook from Floyd to help him do Kalim's homework for him. When Crowley assigns Kalim and Silver an extra assignment in punishment for Kalim breaking things in class and Silver falling asleep, Kalim immediately calls Jamil to help them instead of trying to learn on his own. Jamil acquiesces, as, "I certainly wouldn't want our house warden losing class credit." Kalim seems to have a poor memory that Jamil is often compensating for. He reminds Kalim to bring his magical pen to the school's opening ceremonies, and to attend a dorm meeting that could not be held without him. We learn that Jamil also leaves notes for Kalim about forgetting his robes and homework. Kalim says that he would be completely lost without Jamil, and Silver thanks him for making him see that being overprotective must be avoided at all costs. Jamil also helps Kalim get dressed, and it seems that Kalim may not know how to dress himself on his own. He recommends that Trey go to Jamil for help with wrapping his headscarf in firelit sky. Trey responds that he will learn how to do it himself so as not to give Jamil even more work to do. Kalim gets Jamil to fix his sash during Fairy Gala, gets help with dressing in the morning from Azul in Book 4, gets help from first Jamil and then Deuce with dressing up for New Year's, and tells the prefect that he doesn't know how to tie his own headdress, so they will have to fix it for him if it comes apart. When the temperature drops in Scarabia during Fairy Gala, Kalim remains freezing in his bed until Jamil provides him with an overcoat. Kalim tells Riddle that, when he yawns, Jamil prepares his bed for him. When Azul asks why Jamil doesn't stop guarding Kalim and enjoy their Halloween party, Kalim agrees, but Jamil responds, "Your complete lack of vigilance is exactly why I can't have any time to myself." We see an example of this in a vignette where Jamil alerts Kalim to a potential assassin in the dorm and Kalim insists on going up to greet him. Jamil verifies the authenticity of the stranger's magical pen. It is Sebek, lost on his way to Diasomnia, and insists that Kalim is making his job as an attendant of the Asim household unnecessarily difficult by acting so recklessly. Kalim responds, "Come on, it's fine. Sebek wasn't even a spy." It is not uncommon for Kalim's whims to steamroll Jamil's requests. While Jamil manages to convince Kalim that he does not need cushions, drums and coconuts in his luggage for a visit home, Kalim insists on inviting the prefect and Grimm to the festival they are preparing to participate in, despite Jamil deciding to do everything he can to keep Kalim from doing so. While Jamil protests, Kalim then runs away to invite 4 more people. On the day of the trip, Jamil cautions against taking Malleus along with them without an escort, pointing out that something happening to him could set off an international incident. Malleus guilts Jamil for making him sound unwanted, and Kalim accuses Jamil of blowing the situation out of proportion, saying, "I just want to show my friends around my hometown. That's normal enough, right?" Jamil ultimately loses the argument, with Kater acknowledging that Malleus and Kalim are so blissfully unaware of the struggles of those around them. At the end of Book 6, Kalim insists on helping Jamil, and Jamil begins to tell him, as usual, that he should just wait to be served, but having had various eye-opening conversations with Leona, Jamil changes his mind and assigns him a task to do, instead. Kalim says that Jamil has loved dancing since they were young, but Jamil says that he was forced to go along whenever Kalim wanted to dance as a child. It is possible that he was at first pressured into it, but then came to enjoy it on his own. Much like his interest in dancing, it seems that Jamil's interest in parrots also came from Kalim. Jamil starts researching them after Kalim decided he wants to keep one in the dorm, which Jamil refuses to allow, despite how he has come to want one for himself. Jamil putting a hand over Kalim's mouth to silence him is not unusual, and we see it happen when Kalim tries to extend an offer to Crowley to visit Scarabia anytime, when Kalim risks revealing to a fairy at Fairy Gala that they are human, when insulting Riddle's physical prowess, when Kalim almost reveals Jamil's unique magic, when he is in danger of getting into an argument with Vil, and when he tries to strike up a casual conversation with the opposing team during Beanfest. Despite the power imbalance of their relationship, there are times when Jamil is strict with Kalim, physically dragging him back to his room when he suspects that Jade may have been interfering with his scheme during Book 4. Kalim says that Jamil yells at him in Book 5 when he becomes too excited to sleep before the VDC. He scolds Kalim for his mistakes during rehearsals, and again for crying after the VDC. In a vignette, we see Kalim run around the dining hall carrying stew, while Jamil begs him to put it down. Jamil will refer to Kalim as a certain someone, or you-know-who, when complaining about him. When Trey is shopping for souvenirs during Firelit Sky, debating between one hourglass for getting good grades and another for improved focus, Jamil silently thinks to himself that Kalim should not only get both, but that he would gift them to him himself. Jamil tells Sebek that he is jealous of how Sebek is able to respect his house warden. When Sebek asks if that is not the case for Jamil, Jamil refuses to comment. Kalim ignoring Jamil's requests is a common theme. Jamil often reflects on how Kalim ignores his input, does not listen and will literally sneak away to do things of which Jamil does not approve. We see them argue over Kalim's management of a parade, with Jamil insisting he will do it while Kalim badgers him into letting him help, telling Jamil that he is a worrywart and insisting that he will bring in well-trained animals until Jamil reluctantly relents, observing that Kalim refuses to listen to him. When Scarabia becomes cold at the start of Fairy Gala, Kalim ignores Jamil to go off on his own, only to return immediately due to the cold. At Kalim's insistence, Jamil agrees to make a warm soup for the members of the dorm, but Kalim also insists on helping despite Jamil telling him that he needs to be monitoring the students as house warden. Kalim refuses to listen, following Jamil to the kitchen despite his protests. After the conclusion of Phantom Bride, Kalim ignores Jamil and runs to a storeroom to get an Albert chain for Lilia to pose with. Jamil ends up running after him, leading to Jamil stressing over Lilia's treatment of the antique accessory. While preparing for the opening ceremonies, Kalim suddenly becomes dissatisfied with the design of the ceremonial robes and decides to ask the head mage to make them a brighter color, 2 hours before orientation is to start. He runs off to find Crowley despite Jamil's protests, and when Jamil catches up to him, Kalim responds, "We can't afford to waste time talking. We could be late for orientation." Jamil tries to get him to return to the dorm and finish preparations, unsuccessfully. When Sebek gets lost on the first day of school and no one in Scarabia volunteers to take him back to Diasomnia, Kalim tells Jamil to walk him back instead, saying, "If you won't go, I will." As the welcome party cannot proceed without Kalim, Jamil escorts Sebek against his better judgment. It is soon revealed, however, that Kalim followed them regardless, and the two get into an argument about Jamil wearing his hood, with Kalim repeatedly telling him to pull it down and Jamil repeatedly telling him to back off. When Jamil realizes that Kalim has left the first-year students alone on their first day, Kalim laughs at him and calls him a worrywart. During Spectral Soiree, Kalim is possessed by a ghost that slaps Jamil's hand away and tells him to mind his station, and to never touch an aristocrat. Silver tries to convince Kalim to return by reminding him that they are close friends, following with, "And I'm sure Jamil feels the same way," but Jamil responds, "I suppose you're not entirely off base." The best compliment that Jamil manages is, "I'd take Kalim and his obliviousness over this pompous tyrant," and the ghost leaves on its own in disgust at how lax the owner of the body it has possessed must be. Kalim is quick to compliment Jamil, saying he is amazing for giving advice to Sebek. Kalim also says that he was shocked when he was chosen for house warden over Jamil, but Kalim was selected by the previous house warden, who was a member of the Asim family. Kalim seems largely ignorant to the nepotism from which he benefits. Kalim also tells Jamil, "I'm always impressed by you." He is also often complimenting Jamil's cooking. Kalim is also often telling Jamil that he is blowing things out of proportion, calling him a worrywart, saying that he is paranoid and a worrier, and that Jamil should take life a little easier. Kalim says that the prefect doesn't need to worry about stepping in if he messes something up, because Jamil will bail him out. In Book 4, Azul says that he realized that Jamil was the mastermind behind the issues at Scarabia because Jamil is the only person Kalim cares about enough to fight back against Jade's unique magic. Kalim does his best to make excuses for Jamil to give him the opportunity to deny what he has done, but eventually Floyd, Jade and Azul are able to convince Kalim that Jamil did actually betray him, and that Kalim drove him to it. Kalim declares that he will return to Scarabia to punch Jamil and call him a traitor, but after they rescue Jamil from his overblot, he begins to cry. Kalim apologizes for everything he put Jamil through. He says that he wants them to be rivals that compete in earnest for the spot of number one, and equals that don't hold back on account of social status, but this might not be Kalim's call to make, as it is Kalim's father's retribution that Jamil fears rather than Kalim himself. Jamil says that there will be no more holding back for him, and Kalim responds that he won't lose, either. Kalim then proceeds to lose to Jamil in Book 5, when Jamil is selected as a main vocalist for the VDC. Initially Jamil tries to concede to Kalim as he has done all his life, but he ultimately accepts the role. Kalim is supportive, at first, but later it is revealed that he is pretty upset about getting passed over for main vocals. Kalim explains, "I'm always chosen. Always. That's such an obvious truth that I never even consciously processed it. But now I see that was only possible because of Jamil's constant sacrifices. He created that truth in my mind by always holding back. By always letting me win." Kalim says that galling doesn't even begin to describe how he feels about coming in second to Jamil, which Jamil overhears, though he does not choose to comment in the moment. Despite his complicated relationship with Kalim, Jamil says that he is relieved to see him at the end of Book 6. Jamil and Kalim's dorm vignettes are intertwining storylines of the same situation from two different perspectives. Kalim announces that he has invited the head mage to a banquet to be held in his honor the following day, giving Jamil very few hours to prepare. Kalim decides he wants the dorm decorated in traditional banners, and Jamil points out that a single bolt of that fabric is so expensive that it could easily feed, house, and clothe a family of 4 for a month. Kalim also insists on plenty of traditional cuisine that Jamil will make, as that is his specialty, like a buffet. He also declares that they will have a parade. Kalim shares his vision of riding in on a magic carpet along with parrots of every color of the rainbow, rising out of a fountain of water. Then, I will graciously greet everyone as host. Jamil tries to excuse himself to prepare, and Kalim insists that he can handle the parade on his own. Jamil works out a deal with Trey that is detrimental to himself, saying that Trey completely took advantage of his predicament, in order to finish cooking for the banquet in time. Jamil explains, Kalim loves to invite people over without notice, so I try to remain prepared for that sort of thing on a daily basis. Jamil intervenes with Kalim's handling of the animals for the parade after Kalim declares he wants to let all of them out of their cages in order to get to know them all. Jamil reflects, I can't trust Kalim with anything, I have to talk to the animals myself. After preparations are mostly complete, Jamil says he is more exhausted than he has been in any basketball game, but when Kalim says, is it just me, or do you seem tired? Jamil insists, it's definitely just you. Jamil sends Kalim out to ready the parade as he'd promised, and Kalim immediately disappears. Other Scarabia students recommend that Jamil take his place, but Jamil refuses, saying, that would destroy Kalim's reputation. Jamil formulates a plan to save Kalim's reputation, saying, the Asim family never presents anything less than excellence, not while I'm around, at least. Jamil uses wind magic to create a display of fabric and rose petals to stall for time until Kalim arrives, immediately looking for a broom to sweep up the mess he made. When Kalim falls off of his magic carpet, Jamil saves him from injury with his wind magic, then begs Kalim to be less reckless. Kalim asks, I did great, didn't I? And Jamil acquiesces with, well done, only to quietly follow with, more like, well done, me. Crowley compliments Kalim on his leadership for being able to arrange something so grand, and students of Scarabia follow with, he's the best house warden ever.